Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Anthony John Agnello, Senior Social Editor with GamesRadar.com, and I am at the lovely offices of Eidos Montreal, who are currently at work on Deus Ex, Mankind Divided. This guy right here is actually deeply ensconced in Mankind Divided. This is Patrick Fortier, the gameplay director on Deus Ex Mankind Divided. Patrick, I've gotten to go around most of the studio. There are certain things we can't see here, but I have a very serious question. Where are all the vents, man? Where are the vents in your studio?
You have to look behind the vending machines.
This was my very first thought. I'm like a big Human Revolution fan, and very excited to come in and play Mankind Divided. And the first thing that occurred to me was, how is the physical space that these people are working in going to influence the game itself? There are no vents, but how does your workspace sort of feed into the game?
I think historically, even in other studios where I've worked before, that it does have some influence. You kind of translates, kind of bleeds into the work. And then you start seeing it everywhere, like you were talking about vents, but like literally, I don't know if you'll notice, like some of the doors that we have at the bottom, we have those little slates, that you can actually see through, and sometimes you feel like crouching down and looking through there. Or even the way, like that the glass here in this room is you can see out, but you can't quite see in when you're walking about. But a lot of that stuff tends to influence your thinking and just kind of permeates what you're doing sometimes without even realizing, and how you approach space and how you go about things.
So this is your first game with Eidos Montreal. You did not work on Human Revolution. Mankind Divided is your sort of debut with the studio. How did you come to be here?
I know a lot of the original team from HR I've known a long time, from back in the days at Ubisoft. That's where a lot of us got our start here in Montreal, and so I know the team really well, and I followed them from afar during the HR adventure, and then I was off doing some other things, trying to develop some other stuff with THQ recently with Patrice Desilets before Ubisoft stepped in.
Before things got a little ugly.
And that was quite interesting too. And then there's just it tends to be that way in the industry. Sometimes planets have to kind of line up, and there was an opportunity here, and the timing was good for me. And there was these great people here that I really wanted to work with, and it felt actually, I'm the new guy coming into the franchise, and actually felt like coming home in a way. Like I knew everybody, and I from afar, I've been very proud of their work and everything that's been done on. Because when you think about it, HR is quite a big challenge to revive a franchise like that with that history, brand new studio at the same time, and then the engine, the technology, all the stuff that they did to reestablish this franchise. So I felt very privileged to be a part of that. And then we have a whole new set of challenges going ahead with Mankind Divided. But it's been really great working with the team.
Well, you specifically have history with the lead writer on the game, Merida Marley. You guys worked together on Splinter Cell Conviction and Myst 4. What is your work style together like? She's a story person, you're a gameplay person, you're a creative director on past games. How do you guys mesh together? Does she come to you with a story, or do you come to her with a system? And how do you guys come up with a game together?
I think it's about coming up with worlds and creating universes, and that's something that I learned on Myst, that they were doing very well, that they had done very well, and that was one of the reasons that there was such a big fan base for that game. Originally, when I started working on that, it felt kind of far from my personal gameplay.
Why?
Because of the pacing, and the it's not in real time, and I like the feeling of things, but I really like the the exploration, the mood. I felt they really created a fully fledged, developed world. And then when I got into it and I started playing all the myths and reading all this stuff and really getting into it, I found like some of their strengths were storytelling through like what we call it now on Deus Ex, the show don't tell. Like the rooms and the environments and everything is telling a story, and that I think that's where I started understanding fully how like every piece of every asset actually contributes something to the whole that you're trying to do. And Mary understood that, and I think she was very keen also on understanding also story from the perspective of a player, because from the perspective of a player it's very different. Player understands their mechanics, what they're trying to do, what they're trying to go, like the short, medium, long-term goals in the player's heads as you approach things, how things are revealed to you. That's really important to understand that. And then so right from the start, that was one of the things that we were doing, of finding the vehicles for storytelling, and it's challenging in a game like Myst. I think you have a lot more tools in a game like Deus Ex, and but it all starts from that desire to create an actual world and to understand like the characters living in it, and not just putting things just for effect. It's like no, but like there's literally somebody living there. What's their personality? What's behind them? What's their motivation? What are they doing? How do we tell that to the player? How do we suggest, but not, and just going with that and really having, in your world, as we talk about it, we have like this much material, and then you end up using like that much for the game. But
you chisel away.
Yeah, but you need the full stuff. You need to understand every single thing about it.
Right.
Even though you only ultimately deliver a smaller slice of that, because that's what the game can contain. And I think there are very strong parallels there in terms of the strength of the universe in the Deus Ex franchise. It's the very same approach, but I pushed even further and much more in tune with what I like in
Right.
terms of the gameplay as well, because it's real time, and you have a lot of different gameplay pillars to express yourself. You have a lot of tools to express yourself with.
So even though it is real time, this is still Mankind Divided even right now. I got to spend a couple of hours playing it before you and I are talking right now, and it still maintains that feeling of, you can tell it's a role-playing game. It doesn't feel directly like an action game. This isn't a shooter. This isn't a like one-to-one action game. And your past, in stealth especially, Splinter Cell, Chaos Theory was sort of your baby. How do you take, your experience making something that's very, very action-based, and you're going to go into this space, you're going to behave these certain ways, you have these items that behave certain ways, and it's not so much about building up a character as it is in Mankind Divided. How do you take those experiences and then make something like Mankind Divided that needs to feel a little bit more measured, a little bit more slow-paced? Has that been challenging for you? How do you do that?
Well, it's definitely a challenge, because you're developing a lot of that over time. So people have like some knee-jerk reactions sometimes when you're starting to put a gun together or a mechanic, and they're like, no, it doesn't reload fast enough, doesn't feel good enough, and it's like, okay, but this is iteration 1. You can upgrade the gun, you can upgrade Jensen, you have to think about things in their context. But nevertheless, there's still something coming through the controller. There's still a feeling of how quickly something reacts. How does the camera translate when I go into third person? How does it come back into first when I exit a ladder? How does the gun feel in my hand? How responsive is it? It's definitely a challenge in that sense, because we're not just concentrating on one particular aspect. Some other game, the shooter, you're concentrating on the shooting aspect. Here, the same camera that I have it has to work for exploration as well. You're trying to pick up small objects on a table. It has to be, very precise, and yet it still has to feel good when you're trying to aim at an enemy as well. So you have to cater to a lot of those things, and we have a lot of mechanics that other games don't have either, in terms of like the cover and the third person and all of that. So it's been interesting. You know, it's been a real challenge. You know, fitting everything on the controller, but it's really about being in tune with those feelings. And it was interesting actually. On Mankind Divided, I think one of the tools that really helped us nail. It'll sound ironic saying this, but the one of the things that helped us nail the gameplay aspect and the feeling with the controller was actually like the trailer cinematic that was
No, I get
released.
that. That makes a lot of
'Cause
sense to me.
we're still working with these things, and we're working with the gun arms, and we're starting to get it pieced together. And then, you know, looking at the trailer is like, you know, this the way that Jensen is moving, the way he's blending those things together, and it's like that's the fantasy. That's right there is what we're trying to tell. You know, it's Mankind Divided. It's a different Jensen. He's much more comfortable with who he is. He should be moving around like that. He should be flowing in and out of things, and people want to feel, you know, play this really empowered, you know, Jensen 2.0 kind of character. It has to translate across the controls, and we reviewed a lot of things. We changed a lot of mechanics actually after that, because obviously we had access to that much earlier than when it was actually released. And it really had a really beneficial effect on the gameplay.
But you don't want people to feel too overpowered. You know, power is such a really, it's a fascinating dynamic, especially in something like this. You want Jensen to feel vulnerable, and like, rest assured, he feels vulnerable. I died about 70,000 times playing just the 1 hour demo of the introductory level. But, you know, not only do you want it to feel narratively consistent, you know, you want him to still be sort of reflecting the power he gained in the first game. You want somebody who's returning to this to still feel that they've, you know, got everything they've earned. At the same time, you got to go somewhere up, but you also need to go somewhere different, because you're making a game that's all about choice. And, you know, not only are your gameplay mechanical choices, you know, you can do all of these different things. You can be stealthy, you can be aggressive, but it's also reflecting, you know, some sort of overall narrative theme. It's, do I continue to augment myself or do I try to stay natural? So how do you go about balancing that experience of power for the player? You know, how do you make sure that they're, you know, getting all the feelings that you actually want them to and not feeling way too powerful right out the gate?
Well, I think for us, like when I use the word empowerment, a lot of what it means to me is possibilities. You have to feel like there's a lot of possibilities out there, and then when you're trying to do something, it has to be quickly accessible. And that was one of the things we wanted to do with the controls, like give you quick access to these augmentations, maybe allow augmentations to be combined in ways that might have been a little bit more challenging before. Even things like the cover system it's not an augmentation per se, but it is a tool that you can really start exploiting really well to start dancing around the enemies and or even in combat, you know, to get the edge on them. So it's in that sense that, you know, we're talking about empowerment as well. You know, giving players the necessary feedback to understand what's going on with the AI. We ask a lot of our players in a franchise like this. We give you a lot of tools, and you need to use them creatively. And it's hard because you have years and years of conditioning of, I have a gun, I have bullets, there's an enemy, shoot the enemy. And it's like, well, all right, well, I'm starting this game, it has a gun, there's enemies, and I have bullets, so I might as well do that. And then it's like, okay, wait, there's other ways and there's other things that I have to consider along that. So, you know, the way that we're trying to introduce things, balance things, and yet at the same time not recreate the same kind of thing that balancing that was done in HR, because in HR it was a different guy. It was a guy, he never asked for this, right? He got all the you've heard that one, right?
Right.
And he got all that stuff thrown on him, and he's discovering how it works, and, you know, and it made a lot of sense. You know, it's a very linear progression, and there's a lot of time spent between, you know, upgrades and things like that. Whereas this one, we wanted to change that a little bit, and you can start, and there'll be more to communicate on that a little bit further on. But you already started seeing little bits of that in Dubai.
Patrick, I do have one more quick question. This is. I want you to give it to me in one word. Give me the one word answer on this. It's another of your babies from the past. How did your work on Wet influence your work on Mankind Divided? One word.
Flow.
I had a feeling. Because seriously, just ducking behind cover in this game feels so much smoother than it does in Human Revolution. Just like bouncing between spots, that flows there. That's actually, you know what? I was trying to get you to say something goofy, and that is like way more honest and accurate to the actual game. Everybody, Mankind Divided is out in February 2016. Patrick, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pretty great video, right? If you want to check out the rest of our YouTube video, click this link right over here. And if you want to read some words, click this link right here.